Hello students, this is Avinash Nayak, lecturer of biology, and today I am going to start the topic genetics or principle of inheritance and variations. Students, the topic is a very crucial and a major topic of our vast syllabus, and this is important not only for the board examinations, but its significance increases even more if we see the latest trend, the number of questions being asked over the year in NEET examination and also in the EMS examination. So, if we take a look, then an average of 3 to 4 questions is being asked in the NEET examinations for the past few years. So guys, before moving to the concept of genetics, just look around and see how much diverse the world is. You will be seeing a huge diversity of a huge variety of plants, the bryophyta, pteridophytes, the angiosperm, gymnosperm, algae. Likewise, in the animals, you may see the various different varieties of animals ranging from the porifera to chordates. Similarly, in the junior sections, you have studied about the plant morphology. There you have studied, you have seen how much different the plants and various plant parts are morphologically. Morphologically, how much similarity and dissimilarity there are. Likewise, you have studied the anatomy and histology, and you have seen the various kind of tissues there, the xylem, the phloem, the parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. Who decides? Who decides a particular tissue will be a xylem, a particular tissue will be a parenchyma, a particular will be phloem? Who decides? It means what, guys? There is certainly some mechanism, there is certainly some factor which is controlling all these phenomena. Not only this, similarly you can see, have you ever wondered why a human always give birth to a human only? Have you ever wondered? Not only this, your siblings sometimes appears so similar, but normally they seems to be dissimilar, but sometimes they seem so similar. Have you ever thought why all these things are happening? Not only this, the entire physiological processes that are been happening in the plants, the animals, are all governed, all controlled by something. And when all these questions comes into our mind, then the answer simply comes from genetics. So guys, the importance of this chapter for the examination point of view and also for the biological point of view, you can see how much significant is this. So let's take a look what is genetics technically. What is the technical meaning of genetics? So genetics is nothing but the study of inheritance and variations. So let's take a look about the inheritance and variations. So I am further elaborating the term inheritance. Basically, inheritance is the passing of characters from parents to progeny. It means what, guys? The passing of characters, the passing of characters from parents to progeny, and that is the term inheritance. Basically, it means what, guys? When a human give birth to human, then certainly there is some set of characters that are being passed over the generations, that are being passed from parents to progeny, and that gives birth to a human from human. It means what? Definitely some sets of character are being passed from parents to progeny, and that give rise to the similar species, similar kind of species. And here it is clear, the term inheritance is not itself character, and it is also not the human or any other species giving birth to the similar kind of species. No, it is neither character, it is not giving birth of human to a human, but it is the passing of characters. It is passing of characters. Now you can understand the significance of inheritance, and by understanding this, you can say that the inheritance is the basis of heredity. It means what, guys? The heredity and the term inheritance. And the term inheritance is the passing of the character which results in the outcome of which becomes ultimately the basis of heredity. So guys, the term inheritance is clear here. May I continue? So here we will focus mainly on the term variations, and you guys know, and you are now aware, I think you may have studied about the evolutions, and you know the variation is the basis of evolution. The variation results in the evolution, and this evolution give rise to a more efficient species over the generations. So the variation is a very important topic here, and here we will mainly emphasize on the variations. So let's take a look. So when we talk about the variations, what is basically variation? Variation is basically the differences among the individuals of any species. It means what, guys? Suppose we are a species Homo sapiens, and when we look around, we rarely find, except twins, you rarely find anyone similar. It means what, guys? The differences among the individual of an species is variations, and you find the difference on a large basis. So basically, variations is the differences among the individual of any species. Now we will study the variations in more detail. Now we will we will discuss in detail the variations. Variations is basically of two types. First, the somatic variation, and another is germinal variation. So, if we see the somatic variations, then the somatic variation is basically the acquired variations. It means what, guys? It is acquired. It means it is gained. It is gained after the birth. It means what? It is not present since the birth. It is gained after the birth. And the another one, germinal variation, and that is innate. Germinal variation is innate. The term innate means present since birth. That means if a baby, human baby, is born, then the variations that are being present in him or her since the birth, that will be germinal variations. And the variations that a baby will acquire in his entire life, that will be the somatic one. Now, the somatic variation is non-inheritable. The somatic variation is non-inheritable. It means what, guys? The somatic variations doesn't pass, doesn't transmit, doesn't get transmit over the generation. They do not pass from parents to progeny. It means what? The somatic variations gained, earned by the persons got ended with his death, with his demise. It will not pass to his progeny. But the germinal variations is inheritable. Inheritable means the germinal variation will transmit over the generation. Now, the somatic variations could be gained by various factors. Now, take a look at them. The first factor influencing the gaining of somatic variation is it may be gained by environment. They may be gained by environment, use and disuse, and the conscious efforts. Means the somatic variations may be gained by the environment, use and disuse, and the conscious effort. Let's understand all these influencing factors with some examples. Now we will see how these influencing factors, the environment, use and disuse, and conscious efforts, is responsible for the somatic variations. And further, I am elaborating all these with some examples. First, I am taking the environment. Just take an example of a baby born, a new baby, and one is reared in a tropical climate, a hot climate. Suppose in the hot country like Kenya, any South, any African countries, and another is reared in a cold climate country, suppose in Arunachal Pradesh. Then after few years, you can see the their skin color will vary. Maybe they are identical twins, but even they are reared in two different environment, two different climatic conditions. There will be a clear demarcation. There will be a clear differences in between their skin color. The one being reared in the hot climate will have a deep skin color, will have a comparatively darker skin color than the other being reared in the cold climate of the Arunachal Pradesh. He will have a fair skin color. So it was the example of the skin color being influenced by the environment. Now use and disuse. We will take a look how use and disuse of any organ of body is, how dis and use sorry how use and disuse of any organ is being influenced. So now, so if you see a person being regular to a gym, or any person, a wrestler, suppose take example of wrestler, he is working hard, he is working hard on his muscles, so naturally he will develop a good muscles. And you take example of a normal living person, a normal household person, definitely he will get a weak muscles. So it means what, guys? If you use a certain organ, then that will evolve in a more strong. And if you are not using or not using sufficiently, then it will turn out into the weak one. So it is the example of the how use and disuse affects the somatic variation or results ultimately in the somatic variation. Then take a look of the example of the conscious efforts influencing the somatic variation. As you guys are now aware, the conscious effort, suppose a student being hard working on the biology, then he will have a chance and maybe he turns into a doctor. It means what? He was giving his conscious efforts to medical subject. He was giving his conscious effort to the study of the medicines. And a guy is studying hard for the physics or maths will ultimately turns into be an engineer to be a mathematician, to be a physicist. It means what, guys? He is giving his conscious effort to that particular subjects. It means what? And all these, being a doctor, being a engineer, being a physicist, ultimately vanishes with his death. It means what? These all are gained, these all characters are gained within his life, and ultimately they got vanishes and do not transmit from one generation to other. It is not necessary that the son of engineer will become engineer, a son of doctor will be a doctor, a son of scientist will be scientist. No, never. It means what, guys? All the variations acquired within the whole lifespan of any organism which are somatic in nature ultimately vanishes with his death. Now we will see the germinal variations. I have already told you the germinal variations are innate in nature. That means they are being present since birth, and they are also inheritable. It means what? They are being passed over they are transmitted from parents to progeny. Now, takes a broad view of the germinal variations. We will first discuss the factor affecting the germinal variations. They may arise due to crossing over, they may arise due to independent assortments, they may arise due to random fertilization, or they may arise due to mutation. Here there, it is not the appropriate time that I should elaborate all these terms, but in the further upcoming times, in the further upcoming lectures, you will be familiar with all these terms. Not only familiar, ultimately you will master in all these terms. So, further, the germinal variations are of two types. First is continuous variation, while another is discontinuous variation. Continuous variation means there is a continuous distribution of phenotype. It means what, guys? There is a presence of a variety of various distinguishable characters. Let's understand it in a more clear way with an example. First, the continuous variation is which is where there is where there is a continuous distribution of characters or a phenotype. It means what, guys? There are various distinguishable characters. Let's take the example of human skin color. When I say you the human skin color, then you can see there are various distinguishable ranges of human skin color, and that too ranging from the darkest one, the negro, to the fairest one, the caucasoid, and in between them various ranges of human skin colors are present. The darkest one, the negro, then the dark brown, then mulatto, and so on. The fairest one, the caucasoid. It means what? You can't estimate the whole human skin color within single or one or two variety. You can't tell that one is dark or another is fair. No, there are various intermediates between the darkest one, that is negro, and the fairest one, the caucasoid. Similarly, if you take the example of the human height, then you can't say that one is dwarf or another is tall. No, you can't say anyone that you can't have a clear cut estimation that a particular person is dwarf and a particular person is tall. No, there are various intermediate heights in between the dwarf and tall. It means what, guys? If there is a clear, a distinguishable distribution of phenotype, a character, that will be the example of continuous variations. Now we will see the discontinuous. Here there is a discontinuous distribution of a phenotype, and it will be more clear when I will give you an example. Now see, it means what, guys? In the discontinuous variation, there will be a very few, suppose one or two distinguishable phenotype. There is a very few, one or two distinguishable phenotype. The Mendelian research, whatever research Mendel performed on the pea plants, all were the example of discontinuous variation. And you see here the example is the shape of pea seeds. It will be either round or it will be wrinkled. No other intermediate shape of pea plant seeds will be there. Either it will be round or it will be wrinkled. Similarly, the color of pea plant's flower, it will be either violet, or white. When we see the shape of pod of pea plants, then it will be either full or it will be constricted. It means what, guys? A particular character will have a few distinguishable phenotype. It means what? If we take the example of the color of the flower of pea plants, then either it will be violet or it will be white. There will be no other intermediate color in between the violet and white. It means what? There is a very few distinguishable forms. There is a very few distinguishable phenotype on the basis of which you will distinguish all those characters. And students, these all were an overview of the topic genetics. In the next lecture, in the upcoming lecture, we will be discussing the various terminology, involved in the entire chapter of genetics. We will summarize, we will concise all those terms that will be in use frequently, so that after understanding, after being familiar with all these terms, your journey with the topic of genetics will be more comfortable. So in the next topic, in the upcoming lecture, I will be discussing the terminology involved in the entire chapter of genetics, so that our journey will be a more easier one. So this is enough for today, and goodbye for